Hello and welcome to the very first edition of the TetraCast, RPG Science Monthly Podcast, at least starting off. I'm your host, Zack Reese. Joining me today is Erren Van Duine.
Hello.
All right, Simon Chun.
Yo, what's up?
Ron Taylor.
What's up?
And David Kreinberg.
How's it going?
All right, so yes, guys, we're going to talk about one of the biggest things that happened recently, and that was Yoichi Wada, the president of Square Enix, stepping down recently in light of some pretty bad financial reports during the past fiscal year for Square Enix. So
only the past fiscal year?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Only the past fiscal year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yay, claps and fanfare all around.
Obviously, years in advance. Everyone's been asking for it for a long time. But what we're going to talk about today is not only about him stepping down, but basically, since tomorrow, April 1st, it's already April 1st in Japan, they're celebrating the 10th anniversary of Square Enix becoming official, the merger. And so we're going to talk about everything that's happened since those days, because Wada stepped in as the president of the company when that merger happened. He was acting as VP or whatever up to that point, and then he became the acting president, and he's been there ever since. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the act of him stepping down, what it means for the company, and how it means going forward. Who can save Square Enix, and what things they can do to put them back on the right track. Say what you will, Square Enix not been the same since at least when we went from PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3 era, or at least these consoles. So let's first off, okay, so like I said, 2003, they became a company. So when that thing happened, I know you guys were kind of following the scene about that time, so I want to kind of hear about your thoughts when you found out about Squaresoft and Enix becoming a company. What do you guys think about that?
First, I thought it was shocking. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to happen. I wasn't thinking Enix, at least.
Like back then?
Yeah. I wasn't thinking Enix.
I think back then I felt indifferent about it because, that was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I was still in high school.
Yeah.
And, not really too invested or involved in them as a company like I am now. But,
yeah.
at the time, I don't know. I don't really, I probably felt indifferent about it.
I don't think I, thought it would even affect anything. If anything, I thought it could have been a good thing. Enix and Square, two great companies together.
Did you guys actually know about, Enix, you kind of followed along, if you knew about, obviously the Dragon Quest guys, but did you really know about those companies back then? Were you fully aware at the time? Because we're all kind of young, so.
Not Enix so much, but I didn't know about, the spirits within debacle until much later.
Yeah, I think I'm actually in that same boat. I had no idea who Enix was, and then all of a sudden Square Enix appeared, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. What happened to Squaresoft? Yeah, I didn't realize what happened with, I didn't know what NX was a company. I knew Dragon Quest existed. I played Dragon Quest, but I didn't know NX was the ones who was making them. And then once the change from Squaresoft into Square Enix happened, then I'm like, oh, what the heck? What is this?
Yeah, Ron, what do you think about this?
Like everybody else is saying, I was indifferent. I thought it was just a kind of a standard corporate event. It was two companies merged. I didn't realize that the film was a debacle until much later, like people are saying also. So I thought it was normal. Enix had Dragon Quest and they had Final Fantasy, so you would think perfect marriage. Obviously not a perfect marriage. I would say I was probably, I don't mean to skip ahead, but I was probably more in tune with the company when they bought out Eidos, but when they merged with Enix, I didn't think it was a big deal really.
I think emerging, though, you can't really look at it and be like, oh, this is a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously you're going to assume something is going to come out of it. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't have thought 10 years ago Square Enix would be where it is right now. That'd be the last thing where I think
at the same time, you didn't really see the ramifications of it because it's not like as soon as the merger happened, it was obvious what was going to happen, because when two companies merge, in any other industry, that someone loses their job, because of that. At least someone. Yeah. And then everyone gets moved around. But it didn't happen right away how evident that was until later on. Because, Sakaguchi was still around. He was number 6.
Right, and a lot of the projects that came out, even within at least through Final Fantasy XII, some of those were in development when they were still SquareSoft.
Yeah.
So
and the development teams kind of worked with each other at that point.
Yeah, but I think those were like the last projects they were working on as even though they were formerly Square Enix, like they were still at its core when they were working on these projects, SquareSoft. So I think after that is when it started to drastically change as the workers there started realizing once the merging happened, they're like, oh, this is no longer the company that it used to be. This is very different now.
Yeah, and I think you saw priorities change a little bit too, because not only, it wasn't, I think before the merger happened, it was more about like SquareSoft at that time. Do you think that the way they merged, I'm sorry if I'm not really educated about it. Was it more that they needed the success of the Dragon Quest series to fall back on? Was there problems at SquareSoft that were causing that to happen?
They just need to take less risks. So stick to bigger franchises.
Oh no, I'm talking about why they went to the merger though. Like
I think that was a part of it. I think Spirits Within was a part of it, but I don't think that was entirely the reason, which is I think what a lot of people make
I heard it's like a big part of it though.
The narrative. They were talking about the merger before though. Before like the film even bombed.
The narrative
they were actually talking about it before the film came out.
Do you think it sped it up though? Like SquareSoft was probably thinking about like maybe it's not such a big deal, but because Spirits Within bombed, you think they rushed right into it at that point?
One would think they would back out of the merging, at least on Enix side, but
they didn't even really rush either, because the movie came out in 2001 and the merger wasn't finished until 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah. The story, as I understand it, is they kind of took like a major bath on the movie, and then Enix moved in. Like they kind of started to more actively pursue the deal because they were down and out. That's what I don't know if that's accurate. That's kind of how I've always heard it.
Okay, so the merger happened, and then I think you can kind of see since then how things have kind of moved. Obviously in the middle of Final Fantasy XII, they lost their director on Final Fantasy XII because he was ill, Matsuno. And so he left, Sakaguchi left, and, he started his own company, Mistwalker. So you got two pretty big guys, you have one of the most prolific, writers for the company who left, he was, and that was like his first big project, 12. So that's, when he's in the middle of that, he moves out,
It was a labored birth. It was a long production and development incoming. Like, obviously you can tell something was happening.
Exactly.
People, obviously sickness is one thing, but like this took a long time. I don't think it rivals Resident Evil 4, but it still took a long time, and I think it shows that something was happening in the company.
Development.
Yeah, so you got that. You got Sakaguchi who left the company, and then, like I said, he started his own. But then, so 12's development, long enough, and then you kind of see how things, like this is around the time where I'm sure you guys really started to notice the effects of Square Enix becoming one.
Yeah, 12 heralded like what was to come in the future, like the bad stuff.
So at the time, before then, Final Fantasy, what I like to think of it was like every time a Final Fantasy came out, it was always like this big spectacle, like lines around the block,
Oh yeah.
They were talking about it for months and months before it ever came out in a positive way. And then so 12, 12 it's still pretty big, but the thing is 12 came out like right before the next PlayStation. So it was like months before then. So it took them long enough to make that game, but then releasing it like right before a new console. So 12 did alright sales wise. So that was fine. But then at that point, they come to the next generation. And so you have Squaresoft, Square Enix. You cannot find a magazine not holding up them on a pedestal as like the RPG masters, the kings of RPGs, of Japanese RPGs in general.
Well, they had the pedigree behind them. It is Square Enix. They had Dragon Quest behind them. They had Final Fantasy behind them, like two of the biggest RPG, properties in gaming industry as a whole.
So exactly. So then you have that. So that's fine. But then obviously not only in the next generation, you see the quantity go down of the number of games that they were putting out under the Square Enix label. Because obviously, it's also because a lot of those companies stroke out, like they moved out on their own and started releasing their own games. Like obviously like the Xeno people,
right?
Yeah.
Monolith.
Exactly. They left behind and they started their own company, got back together. Miss Walker, like I said before. So you have that, and then like some of the biggest people on there. You still have a lot of the same people from like the 90s from Squaresoft still with the company. So we can kind of move to when things started to turn. Like it wasn't the generation began. It's like you didn't really people. They were looking forward to Final Fantasy XIII, like everyone was. It was still a lot of excitement around that. But then, when do you guys think was the point in which things started to go downhill? I mean, we can talk about some of the things the big events that happened, but when did you guys personally kind of saw it as something that was starting to crumble?
I think
Honestly,
next gen.
Yeah, it was definitely this generation of consoles, because if you look at it, their output this generation has not been, to be honest, it's been terrible.
Yeah, they just don't know how to develop for this gen. Once this gen kicked in, they just didn't know what to do.
I mean, look at the problems with like Last Remnant, stuff like that on PS3. There was just a lot of development problems. It was ridiculous.
Well, I mean, not only that, but I mean, their engine problems, and then the problems they had with Final Fantasy XIV, and it took them 5 years 4 years to come out with an HD remaster. I mean, that just kind of shows you how far behind they are in terms of like creating content for the current generation consoles, and I guess consoles in general.
I think part of it was developing for high def. I think that was a major problem for them. Trying to figure out how to get everything working. It's just an absolute bomb. And it's a really stark contrast between them releasing console games and then them trying to release portable games. Because all the portable games, it seems like development has gone really well for them. All these games have been great, but when it comes to console games, it just falls apart.
Do you think they did better when it came to like handhelds and the iOS and Android and stuff like that, or versus the console? Or how do you feel about what that was like for Square Enix?
I think developing for handheld was better. I think it's because it was much more reminiscent for developing for the last gen, the PS2, Xbox, GameCube gen. I think that's part of the reason why they did so well in developing handheld games compared to the HD. They just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I can agree with that to some extent. I mean, there's no question that their handheld output was fantastic, but I mean, they did have some handheld games that did take forever to come out too, like Final Fantasy Type 0, Third Birthday. I mean, even Crisis Core took what seemed like forever.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Crisis Core, because this is the time when they put out the Final Fantasy VII compilation. Now, they the best that you had was 10-2 at the time as a sequel to a Final Fantasy game, and that was weird enough. The game itself notwithstanding, but the putting a sequel out for a game, that was the first taste of like, well, since we have this engine, let's go ahead, make another game for it and continue the story. But this generation saw the a little bit of it was mostly the last generation, wasn't it? It was before the transition HD consoles. But the Final Fantasy VII compilation, when they announced that, for me personally, it was like, why do they feel the need to continue with a story that seemed to be completely... There was mystery around the ending of that game that I liked a lot about it. Like the end of the game, Red 13 comes out onto the cliff with his, kids, and then they just see Midgard just completely covered in, basically like weeds and everything. It's completely destroyed. Yeah. And the mystery, leaving at that, I mean, I'm a fan of Advent Children. I love that movie, but at the same time, I thought it was pointless to go down that way. How do you guys feel about how they take a property like that, and they did the same thing with 13, continue it on
So I think part of the reason was that not part of the reason. I think like developing sequels and prequels and stuff for 13, the reason was very different than it is for the compilation of FF XIII. I mean, what do you think, Erren? Like you're very well versed in at least in both of these universes.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, the compilation, I actually don't think it was a bad idea. I know some people don't like Final Fantasy VII, and so they don't like the compilation, or they haven't seen or read all of it, so they don't really understand the different parts of it. But I mean, the world of that game is really expansive. So the stuff that they added, I thought, well, except for like Dirge of Cerberus, that game is really terrible. But everything else I thought was really fantastic, and it really added to the original game. Whereas with 13, they were like, well, we're just going to add on 2 sequels, and it's not going to be cohesive. The worlds don't really connect. We're just going to kind of
DLC.
we're going to throw something out there and hope it sticks. And unfortunately, I don't think it worked as well as the compilation of 7 did.
Yeah, because you got Crisis Core, that is the prequel. You got Dirge of Cerberus, which is
a sequel.
A sequel. I don't really. It basically takes place kind of within the time.
Well,
of the
then
movie.
I mean, then you have stuff like you have Before Crisis, the phone game, and then you have a few novels which are actually really fantastic. And I think the success of the compilation comes from the fact that they didn't change the actual game world when they made those games, and they made that movie, and they made the novels and whatever. Whereas with like Final Fantasy XIII 2, they completely changed the world and the story and the characters, and they're doing it again for Lightning Return.
Well, 13 retcons all of 13, so I mean,
to be fair, like a lot of the compilation retcons stuff too. I mean, like what's his name, the angel guy? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Genesis or Angeal?
No, well,
Kadaj?
Genesis.
Right, I said Genesis.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but he's almost like a background character for most of that game, and
I still think it's weird that he would never be mentioned. It's in 7 at all. He was like as famous as Sephiroth.
Well, I think that's partially because like they hadn't created the concept for the compilation at the time.
Well, yeah,
it's something that came well. Yeah, so they built around it. Whereas 13's problem lies with like narrative problems that disregard the entirety of the narrative and then goes with something else entirely.
Yeah, so
it's not a cohesive at all.
Let's move right into it then. So this is like 2009, 2010. So we're talking about the compilation happened under Square Enix pretty much. So we got that out of the way. 12 came out, for better or worse. And then you moved straight into the HD generation. Square is saying that they're having problems with the transition. They even admit to that. They're having trouble trying to recreate things. So here is 13. The first taste you get of that is that E3 trailer that they had of lightning inside the train, and then
God,
everything. It looks like an incredible game with like backflips inside and the people getting shot all over the damn place.
The wonders of CG.
Yeah, and so you got that, and also around the same time they announced Final Fantasy XIV is coming. They basically took a lot of the same stuff from 11, a lot of the same races, just with different names. Their idea, of course, is that here's Final Fantasy XI, which came out in 2002, and so they wanted to kind of bring people up to this current generation, and Final Fantasy XIV reminds me of a lot of like EverQuest 2 in a way. But, so you got that, you got Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy XIII, and also when they announced Final Fantasy XIV, people were upset. Just like 11, they were upset about 11 when they announced that number game.
I love going back and watching the reaction video to that because
it was like
online.
It was
what the hell?
Like it was that video that they had of people like sitting down on like in dining like in a restaurant or something like that, and like they're showing the city. And didn't they announce that like right after 13? Like they did.
It was right after the 13 demo. It was right after the 13 demo. They're like, we got another Final Fantasy that's coming next year for you. Final Fantasy trailer cues, Final Fantasy 14 logo shows up. And they're like, yeah, sure. And then the online pops up, and everyone's like, you hear it in the video. What?
Bullshit.
Online? It is the most hilarious thing. It's like you bought a product and you suddenly got bamboozled. You got totally screwed. That's what it sounds like.
So yeah, so we'll talk about 14 a little bit because that in itself is a lot of problems around that. But let's go straight to 13 then. So 13's announced. Where were you guys at? I want to know as far as your appeal of the Final Fantasy franchise. So David, what were you at that time?
Okay, see, I know definitely Erren is going to disagree here, but see, I did not like 12 at all. That's
my man right there.
It's not that like it was objectively bad. It was that there was a lot of things about it that didn't appeal to me. That some people are definitely going to say nitpicking, like just the way combat felt so automated and like an offline MMO, stuff like that. And like I've never liked Ivalice. I've always thought it was really bland.
Oh, well, that's where I draw the line, but yeah.
And oh god, I'm gonna get so much hate for it for this, but whatever. So I mean, I was really excited for 13 because I knew that it would be another Kitase one. Well, not really, but
hold on a second. Who? I hear my voice again. Who's doing that? Is it Dave? I think it's you, or is it Ron? Because I think Ron's messing with his.
Ron, did you mute yourself?
I did. Yeah. What's up?
Your microphone's moving a lot.
Is it? Okay. Sorry. Hold on. I'll mute myself again.
That's cool.
Okay.
I want to hear you talk more, Ron. It's just that, I don't know if it's when you move it. But yeah, let's continue on. Sorry, Dave.
Okay.
Continue.
So I was cautiously optimistic for 13 because like back in 2006, I didn't really know stuff about staff and who was working on it. Like then when I found out all that stuff, I got a little excited because I knew that it was the 10 people. That's basically, I didn't know Kitase or Toriyama. I didn't know those names. So once I just found out
not knowing them.
So once I just, it's like, oh cool, 10 people. Yeah, I might like this game. So as we got closer, I got cautiously optimistic. What I was mostly cautious about was the battle system. But as that got introduced, I warmed up to it, and sometimes I cooled down to it. It was just the announcement cycle and just the whole cycle for it was crazy. I went through a lot of being excited and then being not so excited, and yeah, that went on for 4 years.
Yeah. So at that point, then Final Fantasy XIII comes out. So. Did you pick up that game right away when it came out?
I picked up the game right away, and I'm one of the few, but I loved it.
You loved it? Okay.
Did you import the game, Dave?
No, I didn't. I did have a friend.
No, but I did.
See, I did. I imported it, and I reviewed it when it first came out, and I loved the battle system. I think I had problems with everything around it, because battle system was such a departure from everything else that had come from it, even though it still was turn-based.
Well, yeah, so I want to hear more from David, though, is that what things did you love about that game?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say right here that I cannot be completely unbiased about both 13 and 12, because 13, like for me, and I know this is going to get some flack, it felt like the first real mainline Final Fantasy for me in like 10 years. So, because it felt a lot like 10. I know there's a lot of 10 lovers that hate 13, but I love the world.
Yeah. So what made you think, compared to the other ones then, what do you think is a real Final Fantasy that you saw in 13 then?
Well, I think it was the world. It was the way the story kind of played out, the way it not necessarily the story itself, but the level of progression.
So
the story
super
itself,
science fantasy kind of thing.
Yeah. Like chocobos and a command-based battle system that had transitions and
See, I think Final Fantasy XIII had some really interesting narrative themes. Like
it did.
I think it had interesting narrative themes. It had xenophobia, but they didn't execute that properly. Yeah, didn't execute that properly. They had a great setup for a tragedy. They had, no matter what these l'Cie do, they're screwed because they turn into crystals or they turn into seed.
Yeah.
But that also ends up being sort of not executed properly by the game's end. Yeah, they just had a lot of these interesting narrative elements, but they didn't carry them out properly. And I think that's the major flaw of 13's story. I mean, a lot of people say there's a lot of like anime character stereotypes, but I think you can say the same for a lot of other Final Fantasy games, sort of like. But I think that comes in sort of as a part of the franchise. It's just they had a lot of these interesting ideas, they just didn't do them properly.
And I was really kind of disappointed because it just didn't really live up to my expectations. Like, I thought the fighting was fun, and I really liked the music. I think it's probably one of the best soundtracks of this generation of consoles. I think the music's really, really great, but the plot, everything else, it just didn't live up to what it was promised. Like the guys have said, a lot of things were changed. And I just, for a long time, I thought it was great. Like, I convinced myself that it was great, because when you buy a console and you wait for something for like 4 years, it might be kind of hard to accept the reality that it's not that great. But after a while, you reflect on it, and, hindsight sinks in or whatever, and you really think about, like, the design and all the decisions that were made and how it actually plays. And I was pretty disappointed, I would say. Bitter might not be too harsh a term to use to describe how I feel about it.
Did you play 13 too?
I did. I didn't play it at launch. I didn't want to spend $60 on it, and Soul Calibur 5 came out that same day, so I had no problem not going broke to get that game. Soul Calibur 5. Yeah, because I love Soul Calibur also. Sure. But I played it eventually, and they did make some improvements, but as far as the plot, which really, for Final Fantasy, like, the plot is what I'm there. I've said before, I think, I know Jim, I think he's a great writer, and obviously he hasn't written these, and the plot still didn't deliver. I think they kind of fixed the gameplay some, but, I don't know, mini games, a Pokemon gimmick, which I'm not really into, especially outside of Pokemon, which does it the best. I don't really think it was bad, but it's certainly not good in the areas that it really, really needs to be to succeed as a Final Fantasy. Okay. I think that's fair to say, yeah.
So you felt that the bar was set, relatively speaking, was set kind of high, everything up to it, and so 13 had to actually exceed that in order for it to continue on that legacy, and you felt that it wasn't able to get anywhere near that. Is that the case? Or at least get close to it?
I feel like we waited a little too long for it, and they probably announced it too early, right? Like, I think Square's biggest fault this generation is announcing things way, way too early and letting expectations build to these, like, unrealistic levels.
Well, we'll talk about that other game in a little bit, but let's move on to Simon. So, Simon, you like you said before, is that you helped review that game for the site.
Well, not for this site.
Not for the site. I'm sorry, you reviewed the import copy of that game. So, knowing that you were playing this game before it ever hit American shores, where were you at when you had got the import copy? Did you kind of already get at that time what the feeling was going to be on our side?
I didn't think 13 would cause so much of a divide within the fan base than I see now. When I played 13, I really enjoyed it partially because of the battle. But
by the way, what version did you review?
It was the Japanese version.
The 360 or PS3?
Oh, I played the PS3 version.
Okay, all right. Keep going. Sorry.
Wait, the 360 version didn't exist back then for the Japanese one, if I recall.
Oh, it didn't? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it came out later with the addition of the easy mode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
With the novella, if I recall. Yeah, with the novella. So you got the PS3 version. I platinumed it, and I thought it was a great ride because the battle system was great. It was
paradigm shift.
Yeah, it was really different from the other one because the other games it focused more on the micro. I guess less so with 12 because of the gamut and all the other macro elements. But 13 plays much more about macro. It's about how your party combinations go together, which is why they have the paradigm shift. It's more about that, and that's why the auto battle exists, because you don't want to be manually choosing things. You want to be having the AI consider what moves you should be doing. So it's about having what job combinations work the best in each situation, which is a testament, I think, to the game's difficulty, because if you don't have the right setups, you're just gonna end up dying straight up on certain bosses. So I really enjoyed it, but everything else was sort of bad. Voice acting was okay. The music was great, but all the cool stuff that they were showing before the game's release, that wasn't a good chunk. That wasn't a big chunk of the game, which was partially why I was so disappointed in 13.
It was just a starting area, wasn't it? Like They talked about it, the demo.
Even the trailers, like I remember the last trailer, it showed off the fight at Pulse when all the Lissi party comes back to Pulse, and like you see them fighting.
Yeah, that's right. The open areas.
Yeah, that was like a big chunk of the last trailer, but that was like the only cool segment in the entire game.
The giant, I forget what they're called, the giant turtles walking across the open landscape. That was like the big thing. Like you were scared, like you're looking at it, like, oh my god, I better not. And then you want to go ahead and fight it anyway.
I think the part of it that hurt the game most for me was that it was a long time until you actually got all the gameplay features at your fingertips.
Did the original like wrap itself up pretty well?
I think the original wrapped itself pretty well, and then 13.2 comes in with new narrative elements, and then a different type of story altogether. It's not even like the same archetype that it was in the original 13. And then the gameplay features, they made the combat a lot less difficult. It's actually extremely easy. And then they give you all these extra battle stuff that's really cool that would have been actually really awesome for Final Fantasy XIII, but not for 13.2. So like, and I think I'm afraid for the next generation because people are like, are we going to see more Final Fantasy sequels in the future? I'm like, yeah, I think we are, because this company is so set on creating, reusing assets. I don't think they're going to create. And imagine how much the development cost is to create new Final Fantasy every single time. Just every.
Yeah, I think it really hit them this generation, to be sure. So before we get too technical, I want to move to Erren because she has an entire site dedicated. It was kind of started around the time that the NovaCrystals.com. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So, Erren, you wouldn't have started the site if you didn't kind of see the potential in that game. So, talk about what led you to start your site and then kind of got you into covering these types of these set of games.
Well, originally, like, I was super excited for Final Fantasy XIII, and I think anybody who knows me personally will know that and know that I've said things before that. Well, at least before the game came out, that, you know, I was really excited and it looked super awesome. And I started the site as kind of like a personal project because, at the time I was like, I had taken it upon myself to kind of post that news on NeoGAF and make sure that, you know, all the newest news was up there. So I started putting it on my website as sort of like an archive. And then from there it just kind of grew. And, I actually, like, it's, like, now it's more than just the Final Fantasy XIII games. It's actually the whole series and, like, really anything that Square Enix does as far as their Japanese titles, which, I mean, from a content perspective, there's only so much you can do with the 13 games anyway.
A lot of guests.
So, as I kept getting more traffic, I was like, well, you know, I think it might be a good idea to sort of expand that content to expand the audience.
So and obviously, I mean, you've been covering some like the Kingdom Hearts games and stuff like that. So obviously you expanded that. We'll talk more about Kingdom Hearts 2, by the way. So,
right, and I guess it's funny with the Kingdom Hearts stuff because at first, like, I tried it for a while and I was like, you know, people are interested, and then, like, it was just like there's so much Kingdom Hearts stuff that comes out that people report on that it was kind of overwhelming me.
A lot of games.
So what I did was I actually brought a couple people on. And since then, they've been helping with the Kingdom Hearts news. So now we do actually post on that series again.
Oh, yeah, obviously, because there's a lot. Like, we were kind of talking about how long it was until Final Fantasy XIII came out. There was a lot of Kingdom Hearts games. But like I said, we'll get to that just after this. But so you created that site. Obviously, you had high anticipation for 13. You liked what you saw, obviously. So talk to me about what the days leading up to the release of Final Fantasy XIII, because I know you said you imported it, right, too?
I did import it, and it wasn't cheap to import, so.
Yeah.
How much did it cost you? It costed me $120 with next day shipping and everything.
And I got it the day after it came out in Japan, which was crazy.
$1 million question right here. Was it worth it?
Was it worth it?
No.
Was it?
I look back on it, it's probably like the $100 that I probably should not have spent.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing the game. It starts out really cool, and, I was having a great time for a while, but I think as the game went on, like, I slowly had this feeling creeping in the back of my mind, like, where is this game going? And, how...
that's a big question. Where is this game going?
And how are certain things in the narrative going to expand on themselves? And, are they going to explain this and this? And what are their characters going to do when it comes to this certain thing? And, like, by the time I got to the end of the game, and as I was watching the ending, I literally said out loud, that's it.
Had nothing.
Like, I was watching the ending and I was like, really? Are you serious right now?
Did you see my reaction was, yay, explosions.
Did you guys import the demo as well that came with Advent Children on Blu-ray?
I did.
My friend did, and I just played it with him.
Wasn't that like another $100?
It was $90 for
okay.
that
Advent
one.
Children was not cheap when it came out. I will say that.
No, and I actually enjoyed that because it not only came with the demo, but the movie on Blu-ray, plus it came with the trailers for Versus 13 and at the time Megiddo 13, which I thought was fine, and I was really excited about that release. So when 13 came out, like I said, I was excited at first, but as the game went on, I just got increasingly disappointed. I think actually the worst part of that game is everything that they showed in the 2006 trailer is actually a cutscene, and when that came up, I was like, what? It's a cutscene. Like, you can't actually play that part. Oh my gosh, I was so upset.
I mean, of course, and the fact that you cover that game on your site is that you had kind of rewatched a lot of that content, and then when you played the game, in the back of your mind, it's like that stuff is still kind of fresh in your mind, and so you're playing through that game and everything that they were talking about. I mean, you got a lot of first-hand discussions with the people that worked on that game too, I'm sure. So what they were talking it up, and so going into it, obviously your head's in a completely different area than a lot of other people's, like just a basic fan of the game, because you know more in depth about it because you had to do the research for your site.
Right, and as somebody who followed the game and then come up disappointed about it, I mean, I think that it's fair that something like that happens, and I've actually taken a lot of flack for it. I've had just really angry people come to the site and say, oh, well, why are you even running this site if you don't like Final Fantasy XIII? And I guess my response...
There are 12 others.
Right, and my response to that now is, well, I cover more than just those games now, you know?
Throw it back in their faces. So, obviously, so that's where you were coming from in 13. Now, for me personally, I won't dwell on this too long, so I'll just kind of go out, is that my brother bought me Final Fantasy XIII, like, it was the Christmas before, he said, I'm gonna buy that game for your birthday. And so it was weird because my birthday's in January, that game came out in March, but still, he said he was gonna do it. So, I got that game, I did not play it until last year. It wasn't because, like, it was everyone else. It was mostly because that there was other RPGs coming out this time from companies other than Square. So you had, I mean, even Enix was putting out stuff.
Right,
there,
and I saw you say that, you're not gonna play it based on other people's opinions, and I actually thought that was really good because you were able to see the game for what it was based on your own thoughts and perceptions rather than the general consensus, which is it's a very polarizing game.
Yeah, and that's basically is like if you look at some of the games that I really enjoyed, it's games that people they got into right away and then they felt very upset about it or something happened. But I try to do that, but it's obviously it's incredibly difficult. It would be a lie if I said none of that affected me when I was playing that game, because no one can say they can go into a game being like, well, no, it's my own, it's my own opinion. None of that had any effect on me. Of course it did. It'd be stupid of me to say that everyone was so disappointed. How could I go into it with my expectations high after hearing that? So, but to be honest, when I went into that game, when it started off, just like you, I was getting into it. The battle system was different enough. I was enjoying it. I was like, this is pretty cool. The paradigm shift system was really neat. I liked being able to play around with the roles of my characters. The the whole system. The systems were pretty neat, and it came to a point though where trying to understand the story, because like I've talked before, I'm big on story, I'm big on characters, I'm big on music. That's pretty much the thing. So the music obviously was great. I'll say that right away. There's games I don't like in the Final Fantasy series, but I'll always say good things about the music. I loved 13's music. Now the characters, the story. Let's talk about the story. For the life of me, and I was casting myself on RPG Site Live when I was playing it, even for the first time, and I tried to record it during the entire time. Kind of like, just like on the fly, trying to like, let me show you guys what it's like to not have played this game for 3 years. So, 2 years, excuse me. But the thing is, not once in that game did I understand the story, like comprehend it at any time. There was way too many apostrophes that I was confusing things. Everything was mixing up. When I started to understand what they were, people would talk about, no, these are like the gods, then you got the zombies, and like, I never understood any of it. And people try to break it down for me. I'm still having a very tough time. And they say, hey, go read the data log entries. And I tried to, and apparently in the data logs, there's spoilers. It's like, it tells you things that are going to happen later in the story. Yeah. Trying to understand what's going on right now. Yeah. And so if you try to read that, like, there was like a breakdown of communication somewhere. Like, no one said, hey, at this point, we're going to fill up a data log. Better make sure that it doesn't say anything about what's going to happen, like, an hour or two later in the game. And I didn't realize it. And so I kind of cut it off right there. And it bothered me that anyone would say, hey, go read a book to understand this story. It's like, no, that's not how you tell a story.
Honestly, it felt like there were two groups of writers. One of them that were working on the game, and the other people were working on the data log. And I think that's why there's a huge disconnect.
Yeah, and so, and Final Fantasy XIII is a great looking game too, and say what people will. The linear nature of that game never really bothered me, because it's like I've grown up playing extremely linear games, like flat path, like Street Pass and everything. The map made me laugh every time I saw it, because I'm fine with linear games, but when the map is like, you get like a tiny little like a nudge out of the straight line, and then it looks like it's like, oh, there's something over here. No, it's just like some like rocks. It's just like they had to, for some reason, had to map that out. So like that, like none of that stuff bothered me. I'll never say that the linear stuff bothered me too much. It's that the characters, I did not care for in the slightest. Like none of them appealed to me. Even like Saz didn't appeal to me at all. Like, I'd be cracking more jokes about them than I would actually, like, appreciating where they were coming from. I was talking about this before. Snow just felt like Cloud, but his character development was skin deep. He had the hero complex, but none of the psychological in-depth nature of it. Like, later on in the game, he
doesn't even have a mind, dude. He doesn't even have a brain.
It's the thing. It's like people, like, talk about him, like, later in the game, something breaks, and then, it's like, wow, he's really, there's some serious things that were going on, he misunderstood, everyone's bad about him, and then, he breaks down.
But, I mean, that is kind of true. It just wasn't executed in the best way.
No, and I saw that point, I played about, I'll be honest here, is that I've yet to beat 13. I'm about 5-10 hours away from beating the game. But at that point, it became, and I don't want to harp on it too long. Like I said, I don't think 13 is a terrible game. I don't think it's that bad a game. I don't think it's a good game. And so I think it's middle of the road. I think it's average. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, well, it's Final Fantasy. It better be great. It's like, I played enough RPGs, it's like I can kind of just throw them in there and be fine. It's that I just don't think the battle system is good. I had issues with the battle system at the same time. It gave you the illusion that you had control of your characters, but then they got caught up in the battle, and so you had Lightning standing in front of like Fane and getting hit when Fane's trying to protect everybody. It really pissed me off, because I just played Tales of Grace's F. I didn't really like Tales of Grace's F, but like going from that and having complete control over the character you had selected, and then going to Final Fantasy XIII with the illusion, it really put me off. And, from what we've heard about where Final Fantasy is going, they might do something with that. But anyway, so that's basically where I'm at, is that I've yet to beat 13. I want to play 13 too. I want to play Lightning Returns just because, damn it, I want to, because.
No, you don't.
I don't want to say I want to because I desire it. It's because for some reason I need to play those games. I didn't, like some of the people, I didn't like 10, I didn't like 12. I still beat those games because I felt like I wanted to at least do it and then say,
you might like.
I didn't like this game because such and such, and this is why. I can explain why I don't like a game. I feel like unless I beat it, I can't do that. Like there's games I beat and then fell in love with like a month down the road because I kind of laid back, I soaked it in. So that's where it went. So now that let's go off 13 now. So now that we're done, let's talk about today, because we've been talking a lot about 13. So let's go to today. Recently, Wada steps down. The president of the company. He's been there since the inception, and so now that he is gone,
thank the Lord.
So obviously it was result of 13.
A lot of things
falling.
A lot of things.
Selling.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. There's no way you can attribute it to only one thing.
Tomb Raider.
Japan was in a deeper recession than the West was. The yen, the value of the yen was way too high, so they had to sell a lot more copies of games to make up for it.
Well, it's not even like having to sell more copies. It's more that their expectations for the selling of these copies was way too ridiculous. Like with the new Tomb Raider game that came out, for example, they expected that game to sell like 5 million plus, like the first week or so, or the first month maybe.
There was an analyst that said, and I know analysts, but this is all we have to go on. He said that the budget for the game was $100 million, which I think sounds believable, and then to be profitable, Square wanted, or this is what they told people they wanted it to do 5 million to 10 million copies. For comparison's sake, Battlefield 3 did like 15 million copies.
Right, I
those developers.
It's completely
Tomb Raider for 5 million. I don't know how the other Tomb Raider games sold. 5 million for Tomb Raider sounds like huge. Because even Uncharted, none of the Uncharted games made like. Did they ever clear 5 million in Uncharted? I think they sold like 3 million or something.
No, they haven't. But Uncharted is only on one platform though. Tomb Raider's on like 4 things. That's 3 things.
That's true.
But I mean, but even the number they gave, like, it was 3.5 million copies, and that's only at retail.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. I think I agree with Erren. They set their expectations too high for what they were actually gonna get.
Yeah, but at the same time, the Tomb Raider, of course, was a factor. They also said like Sleeping Dogs because it sold. Sleeping Dogs is a great game, but it sold below expectations.
Well, even then, I mean, for a new IP, it actually shipped quite a bit.
Yeah, it did
in my
really
opinion.
well.
And once again, it's because of their expectations were out of the realm of reality. There's really no way around that.
I love Sleeping Dogs, but they cannot have thought they had Grand Theft Auto, right? I mean,
yeah.
Well, at one point you have to wonder, because if that was a disappointment, then I don't know what's going on.
That's their fault.
Even if you look at a game like 13-2, which, the sell-through to customers is actually a lot lower than what their ship numbers were, they expected that game to sell a lot more than it actually did.
I think it's really important to note that the figures that they gave out don't include digital numbers, and I was shocked by that because I know most of the people that I know who play Tomb Raider played it on PC, and if that number doesn't have PC numbers, I don't think it's a stretch to say it probably did like 4 million copies if you factor in PC sales.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that they don't report digital sales.
If you look at Steam, it says like 200,000 or whatever.
Okay.
But still, that's nowhere near what they were going for.
Yeah.
And you have to also consider like where Tomb Raider was before this game came out. Like it was sort of in the same place that like Final Fantasy was. The games weren't that great.
The last 2 Tomb Raider games are considered to be pretty good.
Anniversary Legend and Anniversary. But okay, so Tomb Raider is fine, and then Sleeping Dogs. But you also, when I went through some of the costs they were talking about, apparently it was like billions of yen or hundreds of millions of dollars. They were sinking that into restructuring and disposal of content. So they were getting rid of stuff that they were like, either it was games or it was DLC, or it was like maybe they did something to their social and mobile platforms that they got rid of games that they didn't think were going to.
Well, they did say that they were going to stop making social games. So I'm sure that's part of it. Plus, they've needed to restructure their internal stuff for a long time now, so something had to give eventually.
So do you think that the restructuring, that's what led about Wada stepping down?
I don't think
I think it's everything from this past generation that just piled on top of the need to restructure.
Okay. Wada is stepping down for the same reason that John Riccitiello had to step down from EA, because after the company screws up after so many times, the guy who's been in charge, who is the CEO, has to take the fall. That's just kind of how...
I don't think it's just him, though. I think because the board changed it as well, so I think this...
There's a lot of issues.
But, I mean... Wada's he was the face of everything, and
that's why he's gone. Yeah. Anytime a CEO has to fall, it's because that's just kind of how it goes.
You've been seeing with a lot of big companies too, obviously THQ, EA, John Riccitiello, he stepped down, and so
THQ was a different situation.
They were middle.
To be fair, THQ went down with quite a bit of goodwill.
Well, THQ went down for a different reason, because THQ invested
they invested
way too much money into that.
So and so I just wanted to mention that because it seems to be it's the transition to the next generation. It seems like that's probably the big reason for the restructuring, is because they know if they don't fix it as soon as possible, that when they get to that new generation where all these companies are putting out new content, a lot of publishers are willing to create new games, stuff like that, that they're going to be lost in the shuffle. And so
you think it's better they did it now instead of a year or two from now?
Exactly, because, even if they don't put out a new Final Fantasy game for a few years, it's just the simple fact that they know they need to get this done now before it becomes even a greater loss of money, potential money.
I mean, look at their output this generation, at least on home consoles. I mean, there really isn't anything to write home about if you think about it.
Yeah, it's a small fraction.
I guess the Last Remnant, but then that was a technological.
I mean, you have that game,
but
what did that game do for the company? It didn't do anything.
It actually made it worse. I think the best way to phrase Square Enix this generation is that I think Wada had a vision. I just think he didn't know how to do it.
I think his problem was he wanted to make the company too much like an EA or an Activision, and
didn't know how to do it and failed.
He was exactly. Let's not forget though. You guys are bringing up Last Remnant a bit. Don't forget, Dragon Quest was big too. 9 sold extremely well. Yeah. It was the best-selling game of the series. So
right, but then with 10 they turned it into an MMO, and then
exactly. I don't know.
Oh my god, how misguided that was.
I think there was a lot of problems within the company, and then they just try to band-aid everything rather than actually just figuring out.
Final Fantasy
well,
game.
yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the band-aid situation, look at Final Fantasy XIV. They let that game go out in the way that it was, and from what I know, they actually knew that it was not a good game, and yet they released it anyway.
How could you not? Wow. It was so broken. It was so glitchy. There was so many bugs.
And they just didn't want to. I guess they just didn't want to hurt the team's feelings by saying, "Well, we're not going to release this title, or you have to rework this title." And in the end, it bit them in the behind, and now they're in the situation where for the past couple of years their console output has been terrible, and it's because
wasting resources making 14.
They had to put so many people on that game.
From a qualitative standpoint, Eidos has done quite well. The Eidos side of the company has done quite well.
Yeah, the Western. It's because
But they're
obviously if you look at the past
E3s,
that it
was.
But
you have to really think about it though. I mean, how many of those projects were in development before they were bought out?
Yeah, Human Revolution, that was in the making for a long time coming. You just didn't hear about it.
So you're saying you would attribute the success of those games more to the original Eidos staff rather than direction from Square?
I think Square wasted a lot of resources.
I mean, even Tomb Raider came out was starting development in 2008 or whatever. So
to follow that up, then, since they're doing their staff shuffle or whatever, because they're probably going to keep Matsuda's probably going to be the new CEO, right? He's probably going to stick. We think that, right?
Yeah, that's what
he's been. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because he's been the CFO. So,
I thought Alex thought he would just be a stand-in for a little while they find someone else.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think that he'll only just be a stand-in, or do you think he'll stick and actually be the new CEO?
I think he'll stick.
I think he'll stick unless they decide something drastic. But I mean,
Do you think that they'll move up some Eidos people? Because as you can see with the new engine, they have a European guy on the new engine from the Eidos side. So do you think they'll move up Eidos staff in the corporate?
I don't think they will, because the Japanese culture is in a way to that they kind of like they look down upon like foreign ideas coming into their companies.
Was it one VP now?
Can Square afford to keep thinking like that though?
I don't think they can, but I don't think it's a matter
you
of
would say no, but it's so ingrained in their company. And when I work with people, at least on the American side of Square, like they're always talking about how everything has to be approved through Japan. Everything has to go through Japan because they like to be set in their own ways.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard about Alex talking about Phil Rogers being the guy who they think is going to take over. Like exactly as Ron was saying, Phil Rogers, who is the current Square Enix Europe CEO, taking over the company.
Yeah. He wouldn't take over the company. He would just like.
Oh, I'm sorry. He would
just have a higher position from what they're saying, and he's like a candidate.
Take over Matsuda's role, basically.
No, he wouldn't. Like he wouldn't take that role. Yeah. But he's a candidate for a position that would take that role if Matsuda were to like step down or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I think going back though, I think like Eidos, even though their games didn't sell well, their games have done critically pretty well. I think a lot better than the Square side.
They've reviewed well and they've been received well. Just like word of mouth, talking to people. Eidos has a good word of mouth.
You just gotta be there at E3. Like last year and the year before, is that it was a lot of Western games that were dominating their booths.
Yeah. You know? So whether Square wants to admit it or not, like Eidos has made a name for itself this generation. So
they kind of trumped the Japanese.
It sort of sucks. It sort of sucks that they wasted Square wasted an absorbent amount of resources trying to revive Eidos and making sure their projects work out well. But
at the same time, though, I think they've kind of shown that they still care because, like Sleeping Dogs, for example, like they actually invested in that when there was other companies like trying to get it.
I see a lot of people put that under Eidos. That game is not an Eidos game.
No.
It's not.
The game is something that Square Enix just said, let's publish this.
It's an outside studio, but the thing is though, Square Enix London has like a group of guys that do like manage those games and do have a nice little influence on how they turn out. And they were like over that game because they worked on
they helped. Square Enix London helped them. Yes,
Square Enix London helped them. They worked on the original Batman. They're working on that game that Airtight has right now that people were saying was bad. Well, they picked that up because they probably know London is probably going to shape it up and make it into something good because they did that for Batman. They did that for Sleeping Dogs.
Well, do you want to know a fun fact about that game? They actually had decided to cancel that game a few times. Like, they'd cancel it, and then they'd bring it back, and then they cancel it again, and then they finally decided that they were going to go with it for some reason.
I've heard that. Was it always at Square, or?
Yeah, it was, from what I know.
If I had to just guessing blindly, I would think that they're probably kind of confident after even Sleeping Dogs worked out. Because I would say the only Eidos misfire that I can think of is probably Hitman. Because I know Hitman Hitman kind of slid a little bit.
Which is surprising because like when they first demoed that game behind closed doors at E3 in 2011,
there was a lot of positive.
It looked so good. It looked a lot better than Tomb Raider, and the final product just wasn't there.
Yeah. Okay, it was backwards in the end.
Yeah. So obviously we've kind of transitioned now. So going forward, what, in your guys' opinion, can really bring the company back? It can be obvious things like, make a better game, but it's, what do you, it's more than just the new president. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Right. I mean, it's more than just that, but I think they've already actually kind of put one step forward by saying, hey, we're already on the next gen bandwagon. We're coming out with a PS4 game. Look for us
philosophy.
At E3.
We're doing some restructuring again, but for the better.
I think if they can get out into this next generation early, I think that would actually help them quite a bit. Because if you look at this generation, they didn't get out their first Final Fantasy title until 3 years.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it, there was at least 2 mainline Final Fantasy games per generation. Like, not online games.
Not 2, but 3.
3. Okay, 3. So 3. So you had, it's more than just sequels,
too. For the PS1 era, you had 7, 8, and 9, and then for PS2 era, you had 10, 11, and 12, and I guess you could count 10-2 in there somewhere, but...
Yeah, but, strictly speaking, of course, being that it's, we're talking about the main games that are carrying it. Sequels, you have to play the original to play the second one, so, yeah. And then in, obviously, this generation, it was 13.
13
it was 14.
You know what? You might actually enjoy 10-2 more if you don't play 10. and have the context.
Oh, I play 10.
It's
already bad enough. I don't need to.
No, well, you're wrong about that. We established that. But if you play 10-2 without having the context of 10 to feel like 10-2 is ruining 10, you might love 10-2. That's just me. I don't know.
Speaking generally, okay.
I think Square. I think Square will be off to a good start next. I'm hopeful because they've already. If you're so down. You can only go up, right?
I like that.
You can only go up.
You can only go up, or you can go out of business.
Yeah, and honestly, by them, I've been saying it for a long time before this. Like, they need the 14.2.0 or Realm Reborn to crash in order for this company to realize that they've screwed up really bad. And I'm actually glad 14 bombing is not what set this off. Like, they actually realized.
But while you mention Realm Reborn, though, I'm saying it right now for the record. Will not last longer than 12 months on a subscription model. They have the free-to-play plugin. I'm sure all they have to do is flip a switch and make that game free-to-play. It will not last on a subscription.
It will not last on a free-to-play model either, though.
I think because games thrive off of the free-to-play model.
I don't think the reason 11's lasted this long is because they put out those expansion packs. I don't know if Guild Wars 2 is going to last as long as Guild Wars 1 did, for example, but the idea that going free to play would help that game, I'm not so sure about that. I think
well, look at Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, Star Wars is a particular case because we've never seen a pay to play MMO go to such a gutted free to play MMO. Terra.
Yeah, that's true.
Terra went free
to
play.
The crazy thing,
really
Terra is because it went free to play in Korea months and months before it. I think it was even before that game came out. But yeah, so.
But it still stands as a testament for doing well. There are MMOs out there who go from P2P to F2P, and they have microtransaction, and it does substantially better. That's just how it works.
I'm not even talking about like doing well. I'm talking about for survival. I don't believe there are enough people who are willing to play 14 and pay a subscription-based model. I don't think there's enough fans.
Oh, because 11 has made Square Enix so much money that I don't know if they'd be.
14 is not 11.
That's the thing. The difference
14 is not 11.
I know.
14 may not be 11, but I think at least everything that I've seen for the game so far, I think, I know it's an MMO and everything, but I think there's parts of it that could actually appeal to people who only play the single player game. So I think they're almost banking a little bit on that, and I will be interested to see, like, if they can actually get that to work for them.
I said this for the Old Republic. They're gonna try to make as much money as they can off of the subscription model, as much as they can, until they start realizing, okay, this is the peak that we're going to make enough money. Yep. Now we're going to transition into free-to-play.
I agree completely. Yeah.
I think it's very different, in my opinion. It's because Star Wars, it started as a movie, obviously, as a series, and that's where people know it best. It's transitioning. I know it's a cultural thing, but at the same time, I think it's that, Star Wars, of course, they were banking out the license. I think with Final Fantasy, Square Enix knows there's a lot of people out there willing to pay a subscription fee to play that game. 14 was a mess, but the amount of effort that they're putting into, they changed the name, they got rid of 14, they're calling it Final Fantasy, well, they're kind of keeping it, they're putting a Realm Reborn. Exactly, it's a Realm Reborn, they're changing a lot of it. Everything about that me and Erren have seen, I mean, I don't know how many.
I'm not denying it.
It's been really good. I think it's
fantastic.
It looks great.
They just need word of mouth, really.
I don't know, because like BioWare is a huge IP, is a huge name. Star Wars is a huge name,
but
we also but that
I'm not talking about NeoGAF. BioWare is a huge name. It is.
Yeah, it's a huge.
I just don't know if people were into the idea of Old Republic before it even came out.
Well, that game is actually fun for probably the first 13 levels or so.
I heard that as like bad end game.
To be fair, I gotta tell you, don't let internet narrative fool you, because like Old Republic's audience.
Screw that. Well, I guess we better quit our jobs.
Old Republic's audience jumped up by like 2 million people once they went F2P. Like, it's done some things to help that game. It's had an impact.
I'd like to see how it's done then financially, though. Like, has that helped them? Because
they haven't
say you have a lot of people who are free to play, but how many have actually paid? I mean, the amount of money that they put into 14, they know they gotta kind of.
Well, they have to make a profit.
14 was in development for years. So.
Yeah, and with the huge staff, that's why I'm worried because
Project Rapture.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
It's called, like, the thing is, the reason why Tor is failing right now financially, even though it's free to play, is because it doesn't have a good free to play microtransaction model. That's part of the problem. So if 14 does the exact same thing because they're so hell-bent on having only a subscription model, 14 is going to crash and burn the exact same way.
I just don't see that happening with that game. 14 was bad, but at the same time, you could see stuff in that game where it's like, hey, this is a broken piece of shit, but, there's things about this game that I can see.
What other MMOs have released in the last year, or 2 years even, that hasn't gone free to play?
Yeah.
Because Secret World also released, and that one free to play.
But that's a new property, though. We can't really compare Secret World to everything else, though.
I mean, there's always going to be like that small fraction of a fan base that will pay for a subscription for Final Fantasy.
11's like number 2 or 3 in the top MMOs.
What about Dragon Quest X? That's not subscription based, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Well, there's something.
You gotta actually buy
it. You can't really compare that because
that's Square.
That's the console.
It's also doing real
bad. That's a console only, Japan only MMO. That's not even on PCs, and it's not in English. So
and it's got a single player mode.
I'm not doubting that there won't be subscribers. There will be hardcore people who are gonna pay to be. It's just a matter of, are there going to be enough people for the companies
to think? We disagree. We don't think it's going to be enough of the loyalists who are willing to pay, and you think...
Yeah, and I don't think the company is going to see how that's going to be enough.
Yeah. I personally, I just think that there's an illusion to free-to-play games where people are saying like, well, you call it free-to-play, of course we're going to join it. At the same time, there's so many people, so many of those MMOs have subscription models even if they're free-to-play, and those still get a lot of people on them. Like, Old Republic has it, Secret World. You pay $20 or something like that a month, and they got a lot of people on them. You're starting to see. I think there's going to be a little bit of a backlash on the free to play at some point, and I think Square Enix can do fine keeping it subscription based because you'll be upset about it for a while, but unless you are into the idea of Final Fantasy as an MMO in the first place, you'd be okay with putting money down.
Are you talking about only subscription or like subscription and free to play?
Subscription only.
Subscription only? Yeah. Well, either if they don't have enough people, they're gonna be forced to change. Whether they want to or not.
Within 12 months, it will go free to play. It will be forced to financially. It will have to go free to play if they want to turn a profit within a calendar year.
Yeah, because they're not gonna.
I think it's gonna even take a lot longer than that to turn a profit because of how much they lost on that game.
I think like even if they have to go free to play, it's gonna take them a long time, like even more than 12 months probably, because they seem like they're so bent on keeping it a paid subscription. Yeah. You don't even know.
That'll be the only reason why even though they need to, I think that'll be the only reason why I see it going beyond the 12 months. So.
Well, let's ask Erren then. So you've probably asked them about that whole idea, right? About the free to play versus subscription.
Yeah, and they're so dead set on it being subscription based. I don't think anything can really move them at this point.
But you have to also
the whole situation smacks of desperation.
Erren, you can't really
think
I mean, it does.
But you can't really be a company and be like, oh, we're considering free to play right now. You can't really be saying that right now.
That is true, but they haven't made 11 free to play.
Yeah, and I would sooner see them shut down.
11 is a bit like an EverQuest, right? It's got an audience that's been there, that's going to stay there and keep playing. As long as you give them new content, they're going to keep playing. 14 has a stigma about it. 11 doesn't have that.
11 already has a foundation set. 14 doesn't.
That's another problem with 14. We don't even know how many people are going to give it a second chance after the first time around.
The Legacy campaign, as I was talking about with you guys before off the mic, last summer was pretty successful. There's a lot of people. It was like empty, and then you saw a lot of people playing.
Yeah, and then they'll stick with it obviously for a couple of months, but who knows? We don't. The question back ends: how long are they going to
drop off rate is everything.
Okay, so
I mean, there's things that I can't actually talk about right now because of NDAs, but I think once they open the beta to everybody, then you'll be able to see like just how far it's come.
Yeah,
I think
got a good
game
idea
is
too.
the game looks exciting. I think it's the same way as the old. I view this as the same way as the old Republic.
I think it's gonna go down.
So it's been established about our opinions on Final Fantasy XIV. So obviously, going forward, so we've talked about 14 enough, I think. So they already said at the Sony conference, brand new Final Fantasy could be announced at E3.
Yeah.
So
please.
I wonder if
you got a new one. It's probably going to be. It's obviously based off the same technology they showed in the Agnes Philosophy demo. So you got that, and then
is that obvious?
I don't think that's obvious.
No, I'm
not saying I said technology. I said technology. I did not say based
Maybe
off.
They'll pull a hijink and they'll be like, "A Realm Reborn is actually a new game. It's coming for the PS4, guys."
Oh,
well,
God, please don't
I don't doubt that 14 will be on PS4 at some point.
Yeah, eventually.
I don't think that's the game that they were teasing.
Well, yeah, no.
Do you know the game, Erren?
That'd be such
Do I know the game? No, I don't.
Oh,
but
okay.
I think
I thought you were
can make
just
an
laughing
educated
at us
guess.
this whole time.
I don't think
I think you can make an educated guess, and it's definitely not Agnes Philosophy because that is a tech demo and it's not a game.
Yeah.
No, that should be a game. I think you guys
make that a game.
People need to stop calling it a game until they say that it's a game because they've said it's not a game, and I'm so sick of people like jumping on the tech demo bandwagon because they did the same thing with Final Fantasy VII tech demo, and guess what? There's no Final Fantasy VII.
I didn't
tech demo.
The 8 tech demo was awesome too.
Yeah, that was cool. That was super cool.
But yeah, they are going to announce a new title. No, it's not 14. I've already asked them if they're going to put 14 on the system,
they probably will.
Like they keep dancing around it, and I'm pretty sure they're going to at some point. I mean, come on,
it'd be a direct
it can't be that
Gaikai technology just embedded in there.
I don't
know. I mean, it's the actual 14 is they made it on PC first, so porting it to PC.
Yeah.
DirectX 11, they already got the technology for
it shouldn't be an issue.
They put 11 on 360.
And then the architecture for the PS4 is already so easy to use. I mean, they're already Blizzard's put Diablo 3 on the PS4, so it's no surprise.
Diablo 3.
Well, okay, so like I said, as I said, I think you guys misheard it. I said Agnes Philosophy technology. I did not say the game. So I just want to establish
I don't even think that. I don't think so. I'm not
engine. I'm talking about the damn engine.
It's an engine in development. So no, we should not assume that they're making a game with it. If it's an engine in development,
even if it was done, I wouldn't assume that.
Of course, they're making a game based off the engine. What?
Oh yeah.
Well, you don't know. You don't know if there's another engine.
Why would they create the engine if they were not going to make a game with it? What are you talking about?
They'll eventually make the game, but the engine's actually not done yet.
Oh, so you're talking about they might still use like the crystal?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they're going to use crystal tools. Maybe something like a custom engine, but
Epic's thing.
I think if it's not done yet, though. Sorry to cut you off, but if it's not done yet, when they Square Enix pull Square Enix and announce the game now and put it out later?
Well, they're just showing this is the potential we have for the next gen. That's all it is. I think it's too much to assume saying the next game is going to be used in using the Luminous engine. There will be a game eventually, but for the next game, that's hard to say.
Epic always says our engine isn't done until we, as a studio, ship a game on it. So Unreal 4 isn't going to be done until Epic puts out Gears of War 5 or whatever they're going to call it. I don't know.
This is a low jab to Unreal, but their engine is never done. Never.
Yeah.
But so let's semantics aside. So whatever engine the next Final Fantasy uses, so do they call it Final Fantasy 15? It's almost like a foregone conclusion. Does that save them?
They ain't gonna call it 13 anything.
Does that save them? I think it could redeem them. I don't think it could save them.
What do you? I want to hear each of you guys' opinion. What do you think going forward now that Wada's gone will redeem the company? Each of you.
I think?
Here, one by one.
I think.
How about a good game from the Japanese side?
I said one by one.
Let Erren go. Yeah, Erren, what do you think?
I think they need to get their console development back in gear, and if they do that, that could really help their Japanese side because, I mean, it's obvious they've kind of, like, they were doing okay with the handheld stuff for a while, and then they kind of dropped off, and now they're kind of getting back into the console stuff with, like, the HD remasters and, Final Fantasy XIV for PS3 and all that. So I think going forward, if they can continue to actually make games for home consoles, then that will help him, especially on a worldwide scale, because dedicated handhelds outside of Japan, they're only going down, and that's going to be that way for the foreseeable future.
Sure.
No matter what people will say, that is this future for handhelds. I don't care what anybody else says. Like that's what it is.
Yeah, they can sell.
Love the Vita.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like that. I like the Vita too, but
yeah,
I
love the
saying,
Vita and the 3DS.
If you're going to make a big title, you're going to want it on a home console. If you want to sell your game to a worldwide market.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't, because you can, like, they put out Bravely Default, but even as good as that game is and Type 0 is, that's, in my opinion, that's not going to make them recover as well, because it's still like they need something major that is across. Okay, so anyway, all right, now Simon, what do you think will redeem the company?
I think two things they should do. Multimedia is a huge thing. I think if they make somehow. I don't know how they're going to do it, because after All the Bravery, I just don't understand.
All the Bravest,
whatever. I think if they had some interactivity between the PS4 and the Vita, it would be amazing. Because
crossplay.
Yeah, either crossplay or remote.
So you're saying you want Crystal Chronicles? Oh man, that's a
no. I don't. If it's crossplay, remote play, I don't really give a damn what it is. Like, I mean, the Wii U is already doing it. I mean, the fact that I can have the PS4 running Final Fantasy XIII, and then I don't want to sit on my chair playing or couch playing on a big TV. I just want to plop down on my bed and play it on my Vita. I think that's really cool. I think that's one thing they should do is really look into how they can figure out how to make the Vita and the PS4 work. The second thing is they need to have their development cycles like straight up like restructured entirely.
Well, with that first part, I think you're in luck because the Vita to PS4 remote play is actually a mandated feature.
Yeah,
oh, is it?
It's apparently supposed to be very easy. And at least at a GDC, it's going to be very easy to do that.
I'm not a huge graphics whore, but like I think having a game, just not a game that's available for as the 2-in-1 package like the Vita and the PS4. Like they did with PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale or Sly Cooper, I think that'd be really great. Cause, I mean, they're already doing it with FF XIII, so why not do it with the PS4? So.
Yeah.
If they really want to capitalize on their fan base and whatnot, those are the two things they really need to do.
Sure. Okay. So, alright, now Ron, what do you think is going to redeem the company then?
Honestly, I mean, not to oversimplify things, but I mean, I think like, crossplay and remote play, all that stuff is nice. Get on par with IDOS. I think if they just have a good string of like 3 or 4 really good console games from the Japanese side, just on PS4 or whatever, that are just really, really solid games and back to what they're good at, that's enough. I don't really need like a gimmick or a secret sauce. Just make some good games. I think that's all anybody has ever asked of them this entire generation is announce some good games and deliver.
Right. Well, they've already got the first part down. They're making games, so
they're making them. But like you said, they need to. Tie your production cycles. Don't announce something until you're working on it. I don't know what happened with that. Don't do that.
They even fell into that hole when they announced Final Fantasy the 10 HD, and they took almost 2 years to finally get it out.
Yeah, they announced it and
past
nothing.
The 10-year anniversary.
This year is 10-2's 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, so
hey, that's why they put it with it. They're like, hey, let's pretend like that was.
Well, I think it's smart that they put 10-2 with it. I just wish they wouldn't have taken so long, like as a whole, because I wanted to play that game like last year.
Yeah.
Or the year before.
There was nothing last year, unless you wanted 13 too.
What? What are you talking about? Persona 4 Golden came out.
I'm talking about Square Enix.
This game of all ever.
Okay, so
best game ever.
Ron just wants them tighter development and obviously better output. So, David, what do you think will redeem the company then?
Now, I don't think the effect would be apparent at first, but I think they need to start growing some franchises again outside of the big 3. Bring back some old stuff, bring back Chrono, bring back Saga.
Last Remnant 2.
Bring back Mana, however the hell you pronounce it.
Mana.
I mean, get an audience, at first, if the games will probably sell maybe in the 100,000s at most. But if they grow them like they were doing with them at first, they could be really something special, something like on par with the maybe not Final Fantasies, but like early Kingdom Hearts, possibly sales wise.
Yeah. So that kind of something I actually was thinking of too, is that the best thing about the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 eras of Square was that they had so many other properties that if one didn't do so great, they could fall on the other one. So they had Mana, they had Saga. So they had all these different properties, and that's, same time, that's when Kingdom Hearts came to be a thing. So in my opinion, I think, and I'm hoping they're doing this with the restructuring, is that they need to break out into smaller teams, because it doesn't always have to be a big budget console game. It doesn't have to be like a big, a production, like a new Final Fantasy, is that they can have this small team, even if it's released digitally or something like that. I'd like to see them grow IPs, and the new generation is the best time to do it, of course, is that I want to see them create all these new properties, as you said, break the company up into smaller teams. You can create a console game with 60 to 100 people anyway, so you don't have to have hundreds and hundreds of people to create something even this time around. So I'd like to see that. Man, I'd love a new Mana game. I would love a new Mana game. Sorry, excuse me. I didn't pronounce it correctly. A new Mana game. That's what I've been dying for years. But Kingdom Hearts 3 needs to come out. It's, even if it feels like there's been a billion Kingdom Hearts games, a Kingdom Hearts 3 would put the company back in a lot of people's good graces, because I think a lot of the Kingdom Hearts people haven't really been the fans of 2 didn't really play a lot of the portable games because you had to own those systems. A lot of people bought a PS3 thinking there was going to be one. So I think that's what I'd love to see of it. So that's where I'm at.
Can you believe it? They skipped an entire console generation for Kingdom Hearts. They put 2
out. That was one of their big breaks.
Wow.
And it's funny because Kingdom Hearts was actually at one point bigger than Final Fantasy in the US. So they really squandered all that sales potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not going to go into too deep, of course, but then, so you got Versus 13, and there's, I don't really want to go into that topic right now, too much, because we'll be talking about that another day, I'm sure, is that Versus 13, it was announced. We haven't heard about it in several years since 13 was announced.
So 10th anniversary.
Exactly. So, yeah, exactly. So there's all this time, never heard about anything about it. There's been footage, but then they changed it so that instead of going back and forth between CG and stuff like that. So that is a whole cavalcade of issues with that game. So I think that
you should be excited for E3.
Oh, well, I think everyone should be excited.
Do you know something, Erren?
Oh God, it's so obvious what's going to happen.
It's so obvious.
It's so obvious.
Yeah, you don't need to have insider info to know something is happening.
I mean, come
on.
I know.
That picture of, instead of saying please be excited is not out there for no reason. That's not there for no reason.
They're gonna make perfume for it. It's gotta be coming.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That cloud perfume again.
You know what? That's what they should do. The Square Enix have just separate Square Enix conference. And then just merchandise, have a Lightning cosplayer come out with all that Prada stuff.
Lightning announcing 15 would be.
I might forgive them for everything.
I'm sorry, Erren. I just had to make that joke.
13-2 photoshops were just really, really.
Oh, that was so bad. But
and then someone would deal with it.
If you've looked at all the things that have been said over the past 6 months, and even that leak from a couple of weeks ago on the fashion designer's website, I think it's pretty obvious to sort of guess what happened to Versus 13.
Yeah. They wouldn't put out Versus 13 right now because they've never done it where they released a Final Fantasy game cross-platform.
Not just that. They need to get rid of the 13 name on that game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just having Final Fantasy on there is bad enough at this point. I feel bad. I feel bad that this is what it's coming down to.
I don't know about that, but I think associating it with 13 as a number is probably not good.
That's why Kino 13 became Type 0. You kind of see where things were going.
I know Zack doesn't really want to get into it.
And they know it. Square knows it. It's a toxic label.
Yeah, and what? They're not even calling Lightning Returns. They didn't even bother calling it Final Fantasy 13-3. They just straight up called it Lightning Returns.
Because we know that's what we're calling it, so it doesn't matter. But yeah.
Well, I think the people who saw Final Fantasy 13-2, they were like, oh, this is a sequel to 13-2. I don't want to play it. But when they see Lightning Returns, they'll be like, oh, okay, I'll check.
Yeah,
put the main character in the title.
It's not even the same logo. Like, it looks like Transformers.
Lightning was on the box 13-2, but she was barely in the game. What's going on?
It's clear what they're trying to do with this. They're trying their best to salvage it. Like, there's no way that they can cancel this.
Honestly, I think that game is just going to be treated like another Dirge of Cerberus. I mean,
that's exactly
just the way that they've been
thinking.
marketing it, and just the way that they've been treating it in interviews and everything else. It's kind of like a throwaway game.
So you don't think they have faith in it either?
It's an allegory.
I think they just want to get it out because with 13-2, they were unsure on if they wanted the ending to be an actual separate game or if they were going to do DLC, and obviously they decided on a third game. But like I said earlier, they thought their expectations for 13-2 were so much higher than what it actually did. Yeah. So I think even after they had decided for that third game, they were like, oh well, we're just going to have to stick to it now.
If you think 13-2 was a technical mess, wait until Lightning Returns. That first trailer.
Yeah,
oh god, as soon as I saw that trailer.
When you're first frames per second.
Yeah, that trailer had issues.
When they showed it to us back in January, it looked really rough. I mean, I know they said it was early, but
no, when you make your first impression and it's that bad, that's not good. That's not good at all.
No, and I mean, looking at how 13-2 looked, I really don't expect it to look as... I definitely don't expect it
Well, obviously Nomura gave up on the character design.
It seems like the budget just dropped out at that point. It's like, well, okay, we had all this money, we spent on 13-2, that didn't work out. Alright guys, we don't have much left. Let's just... Come on.
They're just trying to make as much money as they can from it without spending too much on the development.
Do you guys think that with the name change, they kind of switch around staff? Do you think Nomura is still director versus 13?
I don't think he's going to be the sole director.
I think he is. I think Nomura is pretty much the guy they're going to probably be relying on the most to carry them this next generation.
You have to realize
is that a good thing?
Yeah, I think it
can be.
Yeah, Nomura's a cool guy.
I think the man has vision. And
as much as I have an issue with some of his decisions when it comes to plot development and stuff like that, they still have lots.
Well, that's not really him, is it?
It's more Daisuke,
he's not right. For the record, I do actually like his games. Like Kingdom Hearts 2, I think is really, really fantastic.
Yeah,
so.
well,
I'm talking about that. Ideas. He has interesting ideas. He does a good job creating stuff, and then just lets everyone else handle it.
Yeah, I think that's
shit. You have to realize that he has a really controlling position in the company, and a lot of the decisions, like doing the HD remasters, that was actually his decision.
A conversation,
really? Yeah. It's because Square Enix is a company run by art, the art team, so it's like anyone who's the art lead, it's the best.
Or actually, my favorite example with him is he's creative producer on Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy, and they wanted to change the name for the overseas release, and they gave him several different names, and he turned down every single one of them.
Well, for that he's a fool.
He came up with that original name, and he didn't want to change it. So
Nomura, someone made this analogy a long time ago. Nomura doesn't treat his job or creating video games like a normal programmer or creator.
No.
He treats it as if he's painting something. It's his work of art.
Yeah, he's definitely a diva.
Yes, so I think that's both good and bad. And to have that type of personality for the company, I think it's a stark contrast to how Toriyama handles it.
Oh God.
Well, that's what you kind of saw from a lot of these games is that the games you can always say, man, that game looks good, but man, that game plays like shit.
I wonder how much Nomura had to deal with Wada. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Wada probably didn't have much over Nomura at that point.
Because you can tell certain employees left. I mean, I'm pretty sure once I don't want to go back to the merging too much, but once the merging happened, key people left, but Nomura stuck with it. So I wonder what he's been dealing with for all these years, and then seeing Wada leave, what type of opinions he has.
Yeah, I wonder about that too, because he just he's become so reclusive. So it's really hard to tell what he's doing within the company aside from obviously making games. But
I will give that man props for patience. I would give that man props for
just wait
and
for it.
Also, he
not only was
draws
he waiting
a lot
for
of
Wada to
characters.
disappear,
I like that idea. He's like waiting in the shadows. Just like
waiting for Wada to disappear.
Get out of here.
Kingdom Hearts 3 has been on like delay. What's it called? Final Versus. Like this man has been. I don't want to say he's been screwed over, but this man has been waiting.
You could say that, but do you think some of those delays was due to Nomura's request?
Yeah, I think some of it, but you can't.
Probably a lot of it.
It's entirely. I think partially it has to do with Wada's.
I always assumed most of it was on Nomura.
I think Nomura takes his time.
Yeah, I always assumed most of that was just on him being difficult.
What about taking staff from Versus to finish 13? What about that?
Well, there was that,
but
then you had they pulled staff for 14, so there was that, and they had to stall their other HD projects because of that game. So I mean, this whole generation has been garbage.
Oh, you got to think about it then. Maybe when they pulled staff from, you said they pulled staff from 10 and 10, the 10 HD stuff. Maybe that's where the reason why it took so long is because, guys, we got to put out 13 too.
No, well, they said in the interview that they made the decision to do it back in 2011, and they couldn't get to it right away because they were still finishing 13 too.
They cut the DLC and stuff, right?
And
before it actually even started.
Right, and so they announced it way early, and they actually decided on doing Kingdom Hearts HD before that. So they still do that game as well.
It's like the same thing as the Tales of Grace's F. They announced it before, like, that's why Tales of Grace's F localization took forever, because I think they announced it before it was even starting localized.
They already said they're farming out some of 10 and 10.2 HD, which sounds to me like using Tri-Ace again, even though I know some of those guys are probably still on Lightning Returns, but a lot of them are probably finishing up on Lightning Returns and going over.
Yeah, they need to make a new game.
I actually think they're, with that, they might go with Hexadrive, who did the Okami HD collection, just because...
I saw someone say that, yeah.
They've worked with them before on Third Birthday, so that might be a thing.
Oh, well, damn.
Well, that game is actually not bad except for the story, and you know who is responsible for that story.
Mechanically, Third Birthday is pretty solid mechanically. It's the plot that's just a muddy mess. And
we all know who we can blame for that one.
Yeah, we do. If Third Birthday had been a third-person shooter on console, it could have been really good.
I just don't want Toriyama next gen. That's all I care about.
I really hope they just either he leaves or they.
I'm surprised he didn't lead with. I'm surprised Toriyama didn't leave with his waifu Wada. Wait,
what?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm sorry.
The way you phrased that sounded really weird. I was just like, what?
I mean, it's a jab on.
Sounded better in his head.
Yeah. All right. So I guess at that point, then it sounds to me like we've got pretty solid ideas about how we want things to go. So I guess we'll kind of leave it at that. I mean, of course, next month we'll be talking about a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Obviously, everything that happens in the wake of that, because it hasn't even become official that.
No, he doesn't leave until June.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it hasn't become official, and so we'll see what happens between now and next time. We'll probably not even talk about it then. We'll probably have to wait till maybe even July. Because
make an appearance at E3.
Maybe they'll announce they'll talk about who's going to be the official guy at E3. They'll have him come up on stage and announce the new game, maybe.
I don't think they'll do that.
Phil Rogers.
No.
So, all right, guys. So that about wraps it up. So this has been a pretty great conversation, if I do say so myself. So it's been a lot of fun. So with that, we'll go ahead and end our very first podcast. Thank you very much, everyone who is listening to this. If you ever want to check us out, of course, rpgsite.net, but also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/rpgsite. We're on Facebook. Then, of course, you can visit Erren's site at novacrystallis.com. Anything else you guys want to add to that?
Thanks for having me on.
Or you can find me on Twitter at Nova_Crystallis.
Yeah. And then you can find me on Twitter on at KAYOS90.
You can find me on Twitter at Talespun, TALESPUN.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter as at Dave Kreinberg.
And you can find me at
that's original, dude.
At ZACKRESE.
Seriously.
You guys changed it off when I'm trying to announce my Twitter. How dare you? This is very inappropriate. All right, so once again, thank you guys for listening, and it's been a great cast, and we'll end it there.
We'll see you guys next time.
All right, bye everybody.
See ya.
Peace.
Later.